The alarm jolts me awake, its shrill sound slicing through the fog of sleep. I reach over to silence it, groaning as I roll out of bed. Another day, another dollar, I think, pushing myself to my feet. Jane is still asleep, her face calm and serene. For a moment, I feel a pang of guilt for the suspicion gnawing at my mind. I shake it off and head to the bathroom. As I splash cold water on my face, I replay the events of the previous night in my head. Jane had borrowed my car to run an errand, something she rarely did. When she returned, she was unusually quiet, almost distant. I had chalked it up to fatigue and brushed it aside. I head downstairs and make myself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. The thought of yesterday's oddities lingers, but I push it away. I have work to get to. I step out into the garage and am greeted by my trusty old Honda. It's seen better days, but it's reliable. Before I drive to work, I decide to give it a quick cleanup. It's been a while, and the interior could use some attention. I open the back door and start picking up stray receipts, an old water bottle, and a few crumbs. Then, I see it. Nestled between the back seats, partially hidden under a floor mat, is a used condom. My heart skips a beat, and I feel a cold sweat break out across my forehead. I pick it up with trembling fingers, the reality of what I'm holding sinking in like a knife to the gut. The world around me seems to blur as anger and betrayal surge through me. My mind races with images of Jane, my wife, my partner for the past 10 years, with someone else in my car. The car I maintain, the car I paid for. The car she borrowed last night. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I can't confront her now, not without thinking this through. I need to be smart about this. I need a plan. I shove the condom into a plastic bag and stuff it into my pocket. My hands are shaking, but I manage to finish the cleanup, albeit hurriedly. I drive to work in a daze, my mind replaying every interaction with Jane over the past few weeks, looking for signs I might have missed. At the office, I can barely focus. My colleagues notice my distraction, but I brush off their concerns with a forced smile. Inside, I'm seething. The thought of Jane's betrayal is a constant, gnawing presence in the back of my mind. I know I need to act, but I need more evidence. I need to catch her in the act. That evening, I return home, the condom still in my pocket, now a silent, damning witness to Jane's infidelity. I find her in the kitchen, cooking dinner as if nothing is amiss. I watch her for a moment, my emotions a tumultuous mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. "Hey, how was your day?" she asks, glancing up with a smile that now seems so false. "Busy," I reply, forcing a smile. "You?" Same old," she says, turning back to the stove. I nod, biting back the accusations that are on the tip of my tongue. Instead, I go through the motions of a normal evening, all the while planning my next move. I need to be patient. I need to be smart. That night, as Jane sleeps beside me, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling. The condom feels like a burning brand against my skin. I know I can't let this slide. I need to expose her, to make her pay for what she's done. But I need to do it in a way that leaves no room for doubt. I need to gather evidence, to build a case against her. There's no room for doubt. Make a vow. I will uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. And when I do, Jane will face the consequences of her betrayal. The next day, I set my plan into motion. I install a hidden camera in the car, positioning it so it captures the back seat clearly. I also place a GPS tracker under the dashboard, hidden but effective. If Jane is using my car for her illicit activities, I will catch her in the act. Days turn into weeks, and I wait, biding my time. Jane continues her daily routine, unaware of the net closing around her. Every time she borrows the car, I feel a surge of anxiety, wondering if this will be the day I catch her. I check the footage religiously, my heart pounding each time I press play. Then, one day, it happens. I find footage of Jane in the car with a man I don't recognize. They're laughing, talking in hushed tones. And then, they're kissing. The rage I feel is indescribable, but I force myself to stay calm. This is the evidence I need. I download the footage and make several copies. This is it. The moment of truth. The moment Jane's world will come crashing down. I confront Jane that evening, waiting until she's settled in the living room. I can see the confusion in her eyes as I stand before her, the evidence in my hand. What's this? I ask, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. I throw the copies of the footage on the table, the hidden camera still recording the scene. Her face pales as she sees the images, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Where did you get this? She stammers, her voice barely a whisper. Does it matter? I retort, my voice hard. I know, Jane. I know everything. The room is silent except for the sound of her shallow breathing. I watch as the realization of her actions dawns on her, and the tears begin to fall. But I feel no sympathy. Only a cold, righteous fury. You've been lying to me, betraying me, I continue, my voice growing louder. And now, it's over. Your lies, your deceit, it's all over. Jane breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. But I turn away, the satisfaction of exposing her betrayal bittersweet. This is only the beginning. There's more to uncover, more lies to be revealed. As I leave the room, I feel a sense of grim determination. Jane's fate is sealed, and I will make sure she faces the full consequences of her actions. This is just the start of my revenge. The storm has only just begun. The morning light filters through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room. Jane is gone, probably left early to avoid facing me. My mind races with 1,000 thoughts, each one more unsettling than the last. I need to get out of this house. I need a plan. I grab my phone and dial my best friend, Mark. He picks up on the second ring. Hey, man. What's up? His voice is cheerful, a stark contrast to my dark mood. Mark, I need to talk. Can we meet up? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Sure, how about at the usual spot in an hour? Perfect. See you then. I hang up, feeling a small sense of relief. Mark is the one person I can trust right now. I arrive at the coffee shop a little early. It's a small, cozy place that we've been coming to for years. Mark is already there, sitting at our usual table, a concerned look on his face. Hey, what's going on? He asks as I sit down. I take a deep breath and dive into the story. I tell him about the condom, the hidden camera, the GPS tracker, and finally, the footage. By the time I finish, Mark looks as stunned as I felt when I first found the condom. Jesus, John. That's insane. I'm so sorry, man. Thanks. But I need your help. I need to find out who this guy is. Mark nods, his expression turning serious. Of course. Do you have a clear shot of his face on the footage? Yeah, I do. I copied the video to my phone. Here, take a look. I hand him my phone, and he watches the video, his jaw tightening as the images play out. This guy looks familiar, Mark says after a moment. I think I've seen him around. Give me a couple of days, and I'll see what I can dig up. Thanks, Mark. I owe you. No problem. We'll get to the bottom of this. I leave the coffee shop feeling a little better. Mark is resourceful and has connections all over town. If anyone can find out who this guy is, it's him. Back at the house, I start making plans. I can't let Jane know what I'm up to, so I act normal, even though every moment around her feels like torture. She seems to be trying to make up for her guilt, cooking elaborate dinners, being extra affectionate, but it's all hollow to me now. A couple of days later, Mark calls me. John, I found out who the guy is. His name is Greg. He works at that new tech company downtown. I have a friend who works there, and she confirmed it. Greg, who? Do you have any more details on him? Yeah, he's married too. His wife, Susan, works as a nurse at the hospital. I feel a twisted sense of satisfaction knowing that Greg is just as vulnerable as Jane. Thanks, Mark. This helps a lot. Be careful, John. Don't do anything rash. I won't. I just need to plan my next move. That evening, as Jane is making dinner, I sit across from her at the kitchen table. The normalcy of the scene feels surreal given what I know. Hey, Jane. I was thinking we should have a little get-together this weekend. You know, invite some friends over, have a barbecue or something. She looks up, surprised but pleased. That sounds nice. It's been a while since we had people over. Great. I'll handle the invites. You just focus on the food. Over the next few days, I meticulously plan the gathering. I invite Mark, of course, and a few other close friends. But I also make a point to invite Greg and Susan. It's a risky move, but I need to see Greg up close, to understand the man who's been with my wife. Saturday arrives, and the backyard is buzzing with activity. Mark arrives early to help set up, giving me a reassuring pat on the back. You sure about this? He asks, concern etched on his face. I have to see him, Mark. I need to know who he is. As the afternoon progresses, people start to arrive. I watch Jane closely as she interacts with everyone, looking for any sign of nervousness or guilt. When Greg and Susan arrive, I feel a cold knot tighten in my stomach. Greg is tall, with an easy smile and confident demeanor. Susan is friendly and outgoing, completely unaware of the storm brewing. I approach them, forcing a smile. Hey, thanks for coming. I'm John. Greg, he says, shaking my hand. This is my wife, Susan. Nice to meet you both. Make yourselves at home. As the day wears on, I find myself watching Greg and Jane like a hawk. They exchange pleasantries, but nothing more. If I didn't know better, I would think they were just acquaintances. But I do know better. Mark pulls me aside at one point. This guy's good, he murmurs. They're acting like they barely know each other. I know. But something's off. I can feel it. Late in the evening, after most of the guests have left, I catch Greg alone on the patio. It's now or never. Hey, Greg. Can I talk to you for a minute? Sure, what's up? I know about you and Jane, I say, my voice low and dangerous. I know everything. Greg's face blanches, and for a moment, I think he's going to deny it. But then he sighs, running a hand through his hair. Look, John, I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. Save it, I snap. You're going to end this. Now. Or I will make sure Susan finds out everything. Greg swallows hard, nodding. Okay. I'll end it. I'm sorry, John. I watch him walk away, a mix of triumph and anger coursing through me. This is far from over. Jane still needs to face the consequences of her actions. But for now, I've taken the first step in reclaiming control. As I head back into the house, I catch Jane watching me from the kitchen. Our eyes meet, and for a moment, there's a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, in her gaze. She knows something has changed. And she's right. The game has only just begun. Sunday morning dawns bright and clear, but the light does little to dispel the dark cloud of anger and betrayal that hangs over me. Jane is already up, bustling around the kitchen with a forced cheerfulness that sets my teeth on edge. I need to confront her, to expose her lies, but I have to be careful. I can't afford to let my emotions get the better of me. Good morning, she says, offering me a strained smile as I enter the kitchen. Morning, I reply curtly, avoiding her gaze. I'm going to see Mark later. We've got some things to discuss. Jane's smile falters, but she nods. Okay. Have a good time. I grab a quick breakfast and head out, my thoughts a swirling storm of anger and resolve. I need to talk to Mark, to figure out my next move. As I drive to the coffee shop, my mind replays the events of the barbecue, Greg's pale face as I confronted him, Jane's anxious glances. When I arrive, Mark is already there, sitting at our usual table with a concerned expression. "Hey, John. How are you holding up?" "Not great," I admit, sitting down heavily. "I confronted Greg last night." Mark's eyes widen. "What happened?" "He admitted to everything. Said he'd end it. But that's not enough. Jane needs to face the consequences too." Mark nods, his face grim. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. But I need to gather more evidence. Something concrete that she can't deny." Mark leans back, thinking. "Maybe you should talk to Susan. She deserves to know the truth too." I nod slowly. "You're right. But I need to be careful. I don't want to ruin her life without being absolutely sure." Mark places a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We'll get through this, John. I'm here for you." "Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it." We finish our coffee, discussing different strategies and options. By the time I leave, I have a plan. I'll start by gathering more evidence, making sure there's no way Jane can deny her betrayal. Over the next few days, I become a shadow in my own home, watching Jane's every move. I check her phone when she's not looking, monitor her emails, and even follow her once or twice. She seems oblivious, going about her daily routine with an unsettling sense of normalcy. One evening, as Jane is in the shower, I take the opportunity to check her phone again. I go through her messages, my heart pounding. There are several texts from Greg, all innocuous on the surface, but each one a knife in my gut. I take screenshots of the messages and send them to my own phone. It's not enough yet, but it's a start. I need more. The next day, I call Mark. "Hey, I need your help. Can you meet me at the coffee shop?" "Of course. I'll be there in 20. When I arrive, Mark is already seated, his expression serious. "What's up?" "I've got some messages from Jane's phone. But it's not enough. I need more evidence." Mark nods thoughtfully. "Maybe you should hire a private investigator. Someone who can gather the evidence without raising suspicion." I consider this for a moment. "You're right. Do you know anyone?" "Yeah, I know a guy. He's discreet and thorough. I'll give you his number." "Thanks, Mark. I owe you." The following day, I meet with the private investigator, a grizzled man named Sam. He listens to my story with a calm, professional demeanor, nodding occasionally. "I can help you," he says finally. "But it'll take time. And it won't be cheap." "I don't care about the cost," I reply. "I just need the truth." "Understood. I'll start right away. I'll be in touch." Days turn into weeks as Sam gathers evidence. I continue to play the role of the unsuspecting husband, even though the charade is tearing me apart inside. Jane continues her routine, unaware of the storm brewing around her. One evening, Sam calls me. "John, I've got something. Meet me at the park in an hour." I arrive at the park, my heart pounding. Sam is waiting for me on a bench, a folder in his hands. "What do you have?" I ask, sitting down beside him. He hands me the folder. Photos, messages, and surveillance footage. It's all here. I open the folder and my blood runs cold. There are photos of Jane and Greg together, messages that leave no doubt about their affair, and footage of them meeting in secret. "This is everything I need," I say, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and relief. "Thank you, Sam. Good luck, John. I hope you find the closure you need." I leave the park, the folder clutched tightly in my hands. This is it. The evidence I need to confront Jane and bring her lies crashing down. That night, I wait until Jane is asleep before I begin my preparations. I set up the camera in the living room, making sure it captures the entire space. I lay out the photos and messages on the coffee table, the damning evidence ready for her to see. In the early hours of the morning, I wake Jane. "We need to talk," I say, my voice cold and hard. She blinks, confused and disoriented. "What's going on?" "Get dressed and meet me in the living room. Now." She does as I say, her confusion turning to fear. When she enters the living room, she stops dead, her eyes widening as she takes in the evidence laid out before her. "What is this?" she whispers, her voice trembling. "This," I say, gesturing to the photos and messages, "is proof of your betrayal. I know everything, Jane. I know about you and Greg." She sinks to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "John, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." "Save it," I snap. "I don't want your apologies. I want the truth." And so, through sobs and broken sentences, Jane confesses. She tells me about her affair with Greg, how it started, and why she continued it. But her explanations and excuses mean nothing to me. The damage is done. "I'm leaving you, Jane," I say finally. "I can't stay with someone who betrayed me so completely." She looks up at me, her face a mask of anguish. She looks up at me, "John. We can work through this." "No," I say, my voice firm. "We're done." As I pack my things and prepare to leave, I feel a strange sense of calm. This chapter of my life is over, but a new one is beginning. One where I can move forward, free from the lies and deceit that have plagued me for so long. And as I walk out the door, I know that this is not the end. Jane will face the consequences of her actions, and I will find a way to heal. The storm has passed, but the journey to rebuild my life is just beginning. The days following my departure from the house I shared with Jane are a whirlwind of emotion and action. Mark helps me find a small apartment downtown, a temporary refuge, while I sort out the chaos that my life has become. I file for divorce, the legal process a stark reminder of the finality of my decision. I spend my days at work and my nights poring over the evidence Sam gathered, trying to piece together the full scope of Jane's betrayal. The anger that once consumed me begins to morph into a cold determination. I won't let her get away with this. A week later, I get a call from an unknown number. I answer, my heart pounding. "John?" "It's Susan." "Susan." "Greg's wife." I take a deep breath. "Susan, hi. What's going on?" I found your number in Greg's phone. I think we need to talk." We arrange to meet at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. When I arrive, Susan is already there, her eyes red from crying. I sit down opposite her, feeling a pang of sympathy. "Thank you for meeting me," she says, her voice trembling. I don't know where else to turn. "I understand," I reply gently. "What did you find?" She hands me a folder, much like the one Sam gave me. "I hired a private investigator. I found out about Greg and Jane." I open the folder, flipping through the photos and documents. It's all there, the same damning evidence, the same betrayal. My anger flares anew, but I force myself to stay calm. "We need to do something about this," Susan says, her voice gaining strength. "They can't get away with it." "I agree," I say, closing the folder. "But we need to be smart about this. We need a plan." Over the next few days, Susan and I work together to formulate a strategy. We decide to confront Jane and Greg together, to force them to face the consequences of their actions. It's risky, but it's the only way to ensure they can't wriggle out of this. The day of the confrontation arrives, and Susan and I meet outside Jane's office. We walk in together, our resolve unshakable. We find her in the break room, chatting with a colleague. She looks up, her eyes widening in shock as she sees us. "John? Susan? What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I say, my voice hard. "Now." She nods, her face pale. We follow her to a conference room, closing the door behind us. She sits down, her hands trembling. "What is this about?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "We know about you and Greg," Susan says, her tone icy. "We have proof." Jane's face crumples, and she starts to cry. "I'm so sorry," she sobs. "I never meant for this to happen." "Save it," I say, throwing the folder on the table. "We've heard enough of your lies." At that moment, the door opens, and Greg walks in, his face a mask of confusion. "What's going on here?" "Greg," Susan says, her voice shaking with anger. "We know about your affair with Jane. We have proof." Greg looks at the folder, then at us, his face draining of color. I don't know what to say." "There's nothing you can say," I reply coldly. "It's over. We're done with both of you." The room falls silent, the weight of our words hanging in the air. Jane and Greg sit there, their expressions a mix of guilt and fear. They know they've been caught, and there's no way out. Suddenly, Susan's phone rings. She glances at the screen, her eyes widening in surprise. "It's my lawyer," she says, stepping out to take the call. I watch her leave, my mind racing. What now? How do we move forward from this? A few minutes later, Susan returns, her face alight with a strange mix of triumph and relief. "John, you're not going to believe this." "What is it?" "My lawyer just informed me that Greg and Jane have been under investigation at their company. They've been embezzling funds." Jane's face turns ashen, and Greg looks like he's about to faint. "What?" he sputters. "That's not true." "Oh, it's true," Susan says, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "They have all the evidence they need. You two are going to jail." The room erupts into chaos. Jane tries to protest, her words a jumbled mess, while Greg looks like a deer caught in headlights. But there's no escaping the truth. The company has all the proof they need, and there's no way out for them. As the reality of their situation sinks in, I feel a strange sense of closure. Jane and Greg will face the consequences of their actions, both personally and professionally. They've destroyed their own lives, and there's no coming back from this. Susan and I leave the office together, the weight of our shared burden finally lifting. As we walk to our cars, she turns to me, a small smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, John. For everything." "No, thank you," I reply, feeling a sense of camaraderie.